Hello and welcome. In this brief tutorial, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the Zero Tool, which you see pictured on the screen here, available at zerotool.org. The nonprofit Architecture 2030 developed the Zero Tool for building sector professionals, 2030 Challenge and AIA 2030 commitment adopters, and policymakers, and more. It's used to compare an existing or planned building's energy use intensity with similar building types so you can understand how a building achieved its UI via energy efficiency or on-site renewable energy or green power purchases and helps you set EUI targets. So prior to the Zero Tool, Energy Star's Target Finder was the primary program for determining a building's site energy use intensity baseline and design target. However, Energy Star recently changed their baseline from the 2003 Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey, or 2003 CBEX, to the 2012 edition of the CBEX data. So that survey now it's referencing, it essentially moved the mark. So by Energy Star using CBEX 2012 data, uh, those including Architecture 2030 or ASHRAE or AIA or USGBC, this long-standing, agreed upon industry baseline by which we're measuring our progress, that remains the 2003 CBEX data. So the Zero Tool emerged as a free online tool that AEC professionals can use to still determine baseline and targets relative to that 2003 CBEX data. And so you can see this interface here. It does not require a login, fairly quick to get it up and operational. It's going to ask you to input some basics about your project, hit the calculate baseline and target button at the bottom, and then you're going to have an opportunity to um, add some additional information if you wish. You can access the user guide, which has some good information there as well. So for this quick example, I'm going to consider an office building in Indianapolis. So building name, I'll say example in the office building. Okay, country, United States, the city, Indianapolis, my state, Indiana, postal code. Let's look at downtown 46204. Okay, and notice it populated with some heating degree day and cooling degree day data. If it does not generate that data, there's a really easy way to get it. You can hover over this information icon and it's going to allow you to access an Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool. You can go here, indicate United States, for instance, Indiana, 46204, and could look at most recent year if you wanted to calculate that. There's information that's for 2025 specifically. You could carry that over as an example. Just understand where that data comes from. Next, it's going to ask you to indicate if it's new construction or an existing building. I'll indicate new construction. I mentioned that it's an office building. You can indicate if you're looking at residential, and if so, single family, multifamily, or mobile home. Under commercial, it's going to have the primary building use types listed corresponding to the being consistent with the 2003 CBEX data. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to click office building, and that's going to open up an additional box for additional inputs. So I'll scroll down here, my gross floor area. Let's say I'm considering a 5-story building that is, let's say, 90 feet by 90 feet. So that's 8,100 and times 5 stories. That's going to be a 40,500 gross square foot building. I need to indicate that, and notice it inputs some default values here. I can change these based on number of workers and computers, etc. But I'm going to trust that this information sets me with some reasonable defaults. And then down here, energy reduction target. I can enter the target that I want to shoot for my project that I'm considering here, either as a percent reduction from the baseline EUI or as a zero score. And the baseline represents a typical modern building from that 2003 CBEX data. So if I said, let's say a percent reduction, I'm going to shoot for 50. I'll hit calculate baseline and target. And now it has created this results figure that you see listed here. This graphic, my baseline for my office building, that's an EUI baseline value of 96. That is from 2003 CBEX data. That would also indicate a 100 zero score. As you move toward zero, here indicating either 0 kilobtus per square foot per year or a zero score of zero, it's going to, both paths are going to lead you to that zero mark. I set that 50% target. So 50% of 96 sets me at 48. That would be a zero score of 50. So you can see how those relate to each other. Notice in this box here, I can check my inputs and some of this starts to populate, get results, baseline and target. This is going to be your percent of EY reduction from the baseline, your zero score. And notice it gives me both site EY as well as source EY. So site EY is what's listed on the graphic up here. That's 96. But if we consider all the inefficiencies in the uh, utility infrastructure to go from the point of generation to my job site, if I were to account for all of those losses, my source EY is not 96. Instead, it rises to 211. And a 50% reduction target then would be 106 source EY. And notice here, total greenhouse gas emissions in metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year has that built into this summary as well. So this is, again, just a quick way. So from this, I would be up and ready to go. You can go a bit deeper if you want to. You can, again, note an existing building if you chose to. That is going to then bring up some of these additional inputs. You can put some information in here, indicate maybe electricity coming from the grid, then purchased energy, let's say kilowatt hours. I will just make up some numbers here. Let's just assume that that building is a total annual energy purchased. If let's say it's using, I don't know, 500 kilowatt hours on an average day, it's maybe even more than that. Let's say 750 kilowatt hours per average day times 365 days in a year. Oh, that's going to be a lot. That's 273,750. And I can't calculate baseline targets. It's going to give me some additional layers of information here. You can see energy efficiency, on-site renewable energy, and then off-site renewable energy. So if I were to go back down here and say, okay, we're going to add on-site solar. Again, we're going to have some kilowatt hours produced here. And let's say some way, somehow, up on the roof of this thing, I'm able to achieve, I don't know, let's say I could do 75 kilowatt hours per day times 365 days. That's going to give me 0.7375. Calculate from there. See, that's hardly anything compared to what I would need for this project. So let's also say that maybe we've got, look here, add wind and others. I'm just going to increase this number up a bit. Let's say 60,000. Then calculate my targets there. And there you can see it starts to become a larger proportionality indicated. Offsite renewable energy could be indicated as well. If you were to, let's say, 30,000. So that's how much is sold. So it's detracted from that. So that becomes a deficiency. It works against you there. Could add on-site wind. There's, let's say I had some, I don't know, parapet wind turbines. I'm just kind of trying a few things here just to add some interesting aspects to this. So up here you can see it starts to increase again. So there you go. This shows you how to get into this at this point too, with this information populated for now what I set to be an existing building with some proportion of on-site solar and on-site wind and some proportion of the renewables being sold. You can see how it comes out on balance. Let me just go down here and just remove that. So you can see how you can really start to have an exchange with this. And as you do, you can see baseline targets through efficiency and on-site renewables, and what you start to get, it starts to populate this tabulation here, and you get information on emissions and source EY and site EY in addition to your zero score. So I hope this tutorial helped demystify the zero tool and encourages you to access this great tool and make use of it. Wish you all good things and happy modeling.